Lisa, about 15 seconds. I see a little Columbo in Attorney Goff here, but it may be charming, but I don't know where he's going. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm equally lost. Showing the home of Roddy Bryant was important, yes, and trying to say whether or not Ahmaud Arbery saw him at the home when he was passing the first time makes zero sense. We don't know what Ahmaud saw as he went up that road.
Yeah, there were a couple of things, Lisa, that I seem to have culled from this. You tell me if either one helps that cause, as Roger has stated. Apparently, he was driving William Roddy Bryan about 2 to 3 miles an hour, or 3 to 5, one or the other, suggesting this was not a high-speed pursuit. That's one thing. And the other one was that he had put his camera down at some point and was headed back toward his house when he uttered a phrase, "I'm going to keep going." Defense is suggesting he meant, "I'm going to keep going home," whereas prosecution is clearly suggesting, "I'm going to keep going after this guy." Either of those 2 points doing much for you?
No, I mean, the statement, "I'm going to keep going," the interpretation would be that I'm going to keep going with pursuing Ahmed. He made the 3-point turn. So he was en route following him, and he was going away from his house. So it wasn't a direct route back home again. Making that 3-point turn is why the mileage was decreased to 2.3 miles an hour. And then I just think that I almost feel like there's some badgering there that doesn't make sense. Breaking that video down, you had 1,000 still shots of the actual crime scene where we saw Ahmaud Arbery's body, but did you do the same thing with the vehicle? And he ended up saying, yes, he did. So I don't think he expected that, and it kind of backfired on him.
Yeah, and I can't wait to go through those 1,000 images if we can. Yeah, that would be very interesting because we've heard so much of the body cam, what I'll call attitude and nonchalance about what happened there, Lisa. You know, your former law enforcement. How did you take what we heard from them on those, body cam scene of the crime, moment of the crime interactions? I thought that was very telling.
It was very relaxed, and nonchalant is the perfect word for it. And you have to think, why? Why would they feel that way? And I think as it came forward that Gregory McMichael had 30 years on the job, he's a retired police officer, that they were going to take what he said at face value and just assume that that was the correct version of the story without digging deeper and finding out, what happened. We've got a man who is splattered with a shotgun to his chest and dead at that scene. So having a nonchalant attitude is the last thing that needs to happen. And I think there needed to be more sense of this situation being extremely exigent.
So Attorney Goff has been front and center in this case, and I want to talk to my guest about that, get their take on his performance, not just on a legal level, but some of the things he's said that have painted him in not the best light when you're in a case that's already very racially charged. Lisa, he made the comment the other day about, I don't really think we need to have a whole lot of more black pastors showing up here in court. And then Jesse Jackson, I guess, was there yesterday, and he was there again today, but in the overflow room, so he wasn't quite, as in the jury members' faces. I think yesterday he was even comforting Ahmaud Arbery's mom, and the jury had full view of that. So what do you think about Attorney Goff's approach? Does he have an issue? Did he just not put it in the best light? What's your take?
Yes, obviously it's extremely racially charged, and then to go ahead and bring that in is kind of showing you that there tends to be an aspect of bias to how he feels about having that support system show up for Arbery's family. So I think that could it have been handled better? Absolutely, and in hindsight he probably believes so too. But anything that's in front of the jury is going to be considered, kind of a negative toward lawyer Goff.
So let me ask you, Lisa, before we move over to the Rittenhouse case real quickly. What about this weird police action kind of wrinkle to what Gregory McMichael did, and arguably his son as well in the same vehicle? He's former police. Or at least sheriff's officer, and he sort of used that wrinkle, that angle. It's got to bug you as a former law enforcement how he tried to kind of play that card.
Well, there's a certain amount of experience with being a police officer. I was a police officer, so when I'm out in the world and I see certain things, I'm coming from a perspective from my police training. So you have an assumption, I would have to say, right off the bat, a police officer who shows up on a scene and somebody says, listen, I'm a police officer, or they actually knew him and knew when he was on the job, to kind of take what he says and say, you know what, there's no reason why he would make this up, and trust that that is being gospel. But we have somebody, as I said before, who is laid out with shotgun pellets throughout his body, and we don't know the full story. So it should have been taken very seriously.
Well, I'll tell you, he is tenacious on the point. That is Attorney Goff, again, asking the court to make a clear record of what he believes is influence, inappropriate influence by, well, what he describes as a lot of black pastors. Lisa Lockwood, I don't know that it helps to pound on the pulpit harder, but he certainly is carrying this thing as far as he can carry it. There should not be people who might influence the jury in the courthouse, in the court foyer, anywhere.
The argument, I think, is probably going over a lot better than yesterday and the way that it was presented, because right now we have a case where there is an assumption that this was racially biased, and bringing in these various groups for the opportunity to have them in a courtroom, to influence, to create a circus-like atmosphere outside of the courtroom, and what will the jury be exposed to, and what kind of influence will it have on them. And that makes sense because he wants to lay the ground for the potential of a mistrial later if it's not noted.